Welcome to Moveable Dough. This is Steve Danielson. I'm a composer, conductor, and music educator. On this podcast, I talk with other composers and discover how they began their journey into composition. Join me each week as we explore their lives, their musical journeys, and of course, their music. To learn more about this podcast and access a complete archive of episodes, including the series of shorter segments called Movable Snippets, visit my website at sdcompose.com/movabledough. Hey, this is Steve. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Moveable Dough. I am so excited for this special episode today because I get to welcome back to the program a former guest of the show and my friend, Jocelyn Hagen. Jocelyn was a guest of the program way back in 2020 in season 1, episode 8, and is back today to talk about a new podcast that she's hosting called Compose Like a Girl. I'm thrilled to talk about this new venture with her. Jocelyn Hagen, welcome back to Moveable Dough.
Thank you so much, Steve. It's a joy to be back.
You're my first returning guest. It's exciting.
Oh, that is exciting. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah. So first of all, before we get to the new podcast, I want to hear more about you. So what have you been up to recently, say, I don't know, in the past 3 years or so?
Oh, 3 years. Yeah. Well, I've been really excited about how well the Notebooks of Leonardo da Vinci is doing. That's my multimedia work.
Yeah, I think you were in the tail end of working on that when we talked last.
Yeah. So it's gone through all the consortium performances that will happen at this point. And it's been performed over 30 times, and it's been performed across the country and in Sweden, and this summer in Croatia. And this fall, it will be at the NCCO conference in Atlanta, which I'm pretty excited about.
Fantastic. And you even did like a TEDx talk about all this, right?
Yeah, I did, because what makes the piece really interesting, I think, is the fact that I was, for many of the movements, I was thinking about the visuals and the music at the same time, conceiving of them together. And so I think you really get to see that, especially in the first movement, with the writing with Leonardo da Vinci's handwriting. And if you want, you can then go to, it's on YouTube. You can watch the TEDx talk there. Yeah.
Fabulous. And Graphite Publishing still doing well? Yeah,
we've seen some major growth since, everything, took a dive in 2020, which was hard for all of us who publish music. But it's been steadily increasing. And we made a magazine in 2021, and that was super fun. And so we're going to do that again this year. And we've added some amazing composers to our roster in just the past couple of years as well. Sandra Choi, Carlos Cordero. We're working on getting more Abby Patinas and Mari Isabel Valverde up. And Katerina Gimmon and Tracy Wong. It's just exploding, and we're so proud to be associated with such esteemed composers.
That is fantastic. If my listeners have not checked out Graphite Publishing yet, you need to. There's such great music there. So I'd like to turn to the podcast. So you decided to take the leap from the printed page to the airwaves, if you will. So what prompted the decision to move in that direction?
I think part of it was the pandemic, and we were all kind of going, what else could we be doing right now? And I'd known for a while that the Compose Like a Girl initiative was something that I was very excited about and needed to make it a bigger part of my life. I wanted to devote more time to it. And the podcast seemed like a really great idea, where I could just, call up all these women composers that I've admired for years and years and just pick their brains and ask them all the questions I've ever wanted to ask. And just for all of us to be seen a little bit more, because it's still harder for us to get our works to the concert stage. It's getting better, but it's still harder.
Yeah. So I know, going back to sort of the genesis of the idea, I know Compose Like a Girl, you had that as a choral series through Graphite Publishing, right? So where did the idea initially come from?
It goes all the way back to 2017, I think, or was it 2019? It was one of the big ACDA national conferences, and we decided to. It was just kind of done on a whim. Like, we have so many wonderful women composers on the Graphite site that were like, let's find a way to celebrate them and like make a poster of all of them. And so we decided to try this compose like a girl thing. And we had a, hashtag compose like a girl, and we got buttons that said compose like a girl. And the trickiest, or the hardest thing about that whole endeavor was the fact that when we announced the initiative then, or the marketing plan, we got some really kind of rough feedback from
Really?
a female conductor. Yeah. Just saying, I don't understand why we need this. What if we were to say compose like a boy? What would that mean? And it was just it was a reaction I was totally not expecting. And it actually really shut me down for about 2 days. And then after that, I was like, wow, I guess I still do need to talk about why it's different for me and some of the things that I've had to go through. And, women talk. I know some incredibly awful stories about the things that have happened to other women composers that, so there are still issues there that, for the most part, we've just kind of let them go, just take it and not talk about it. And I think it's time that we start talking about it. And I think also with the Me Too movement and the Time's Up movement, both of those things also empowered and emboldened me to speak up more.
Yeah. And I think they're important conversations to have, and they're conversations that I can't really have, from where I am. I know I could never be a guest on your show, but I enjoy listening to the conversations because I think they are things that need to be spoken out loud and conversations that do need to happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I have listened to the first couple of episodes that you've released, and I've enjoyed sort of the easy flow of conversation that you have with your guests. How often can we expect to hear a new interview?
About once a month.
Okay.
Man, podcasting is a lot of work. I know that. It's one of those things like, oh, I'll do this thing. And then you realize, oh my gosh, there's a lot to this. And one of the hardest things is editing down the conversations, because we talk for almost an hour. And not only do we have, part of the conversation, but we also have the music in the podcast. So that takes up many minutes of time, which I didn't want to not do. So it's hard to cut down to those. So the conversations feel very brief to me in the podcast compared to the actual conversations that
Sure.
I'm having.
Sure. Just you brought up music. I was wondering, was the opening and the closing, like the intro outro music, was that something you wrote or
No, I
no?
commissioned it.
Oh, you commissioned it. Awesome.
I
Who wrote
commissioned
it?
music. Yes, Cicely Parnas. She's an incredible cellist, and she started doing a lot more composing now. And I've had the pleasure of collaborating with her a few times.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So I know you're still in the beginning stages of the podcast, but can you share something that you have learned from the composers that you've talked to so far?
That it feels really good to have these conversations, have these open conversations with women, and have the excuse to do it. So often it's like, how do we find the time to just sit down and really talk about things? But when it's for something like this and we carve out the time, and that's been a wonderful realization to just make it a priority, and then just to have these open conversations. That's amazing. All these women I've wanted to know, oh, will you please be my friend because I admire you so much. Now I actually can reach out and say, wow, I feel like I know these women. And that really is wonderful.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way with this podcast here. I mean, I get to talk with composers all the time, and they're not just names on a page, they're people, and I get to pick their brains about what they're doing. I love it.
Yeah. So it is definitely joyful. A lot of work, but joyful.
So is the goal of the podcast to promote composers that you're currently publishing through your choral series, or will you be looking outside the choral series for candidates to interview?
Actually, most of them that I'm interviewing are not in the choral series.
Okay.
Yeah, the interviews, so the guests on the podcasts are mostly well-established composers that have been in the field for a while and that I look up to, and yeah, have been inspiration for me. And then most of the pieces in the Compose Like a Girl choral series, not for all of them, but for many of them, it's their very first published piece. So it's a lot of emerging composers, a lot of them who still need quite a bit of mentorship and editing when it comes to their scores. So that's a big part of the series as well, is taking that time to, hey, this piece is quite good. It's almost there. Here are 5 things that would make it really good. And then we dive in and kind of do that, because I feel I see this gap in with our publishing company. All these people send their music to us to consider for publishing, and there are so many, and especially women and underrepresented composers, where the level is just, it's not quite there yet. But man, an hour-long conversation, and I bet we could fix a lot of those things. So so that's kind of what I'm doing. It's kind of like mini composition lessons, or mini mentoring sessions. And yeah, we get these scores in really great shape. And then as part of my job, I'm also looking out into the choral community to try and find ambassadors for these new choral works, so that these young, or not, these women, emerging composers, can get the chance to hear their music and have that collaborative experience with a choir. And because all those steps, that's how we get better and better at this. And so sometimes they just are needing a little boost, and so I'm trying to give that little bit of boost.
Yeah, that is such a refreshing approach from a publisher.
Yeah, I think publishers used to do this. I think earlier in the 20th century, this was definitely part of publishing practice, and I think it is something that has fallen away,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
because I have never received that sort of feedback from a publisher. So,
Yeah, and it's hard. It's not no one's making a ton of money selling sheet music,
right.
or it's so I understand why it's getting harder to have that kind of in-depth interaction with the artists. But I just kind of decided that it was going to be worth my time, and I was going to devote energy to it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of in-depth interaction, so you have these in-depth conversations with these composers. What are you hoping your listeners are going to come away with?
Well, I hope that a lot of conductors are listening, and that they decide to program this music, because our especially I'm trying to feature a lot of large works. Because that was definitely something I noticed years ago, was that, wow, there just aren't as many large scale, like, masterworks by women that are being performed. And part of that issue was that there weren't as many commissions happening at that level. It goes back, it's a systemic issue, right? So I decided that I wanted to try and focus on a lot of these larger works, so people could get to know them and hopefully then program them. So, like, for Sarah Kirkland Snyder, we talk about her new Mass for the Endangered, which is lovely. But yeah.
All right. Well, I got one more question for you before we take a break. So,
Okay.
what has been one of the hardest things you've faced while figuring out this podcasting thing? And conversely, what's been one of the most rewarding?
Ooh. The tough thing is that I realized that I never wanted to edit down the conversation. And a lot of it was because I hated listening to the sound of my own voice. I don't like listening to myself sing. I don't like listening to myself talk. It's a thing. I don't think I'm alone in that
No, I
either.
don't think so.
But yeah, so I had to eventually take the step and hire somebody to do the editing down work for me, because a lot of these interviews happened quite a while ago, and now they're finally getting going. And it's because I hired it out. I had to have someone
Okay.
else do that for me. The most rewarding, I think it's these deeper relationships I have now with these composers. I feel like I know them at a better level, a deeper level. Persephone Powell, most of these interviews last like an hour. We talked for almost 2 hours. I do
She's
not.
fabulous.
Oh, it's just wonderful. And I do not envy Laura's job. Laura is the one that edits it down for. She will have such a tough time figuring out what to actually feature in the shortened version of the podcast.
Well, good luck, Laura. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Well, after a quick break, we're going to come back and talk about some of the composers featured on Compose Like a Girl. Welcome back. This is Steve Danielson. I'm talking today with Jocelyn Hagen about her new podcast, Compose Like a Girl. Now, Jocelyn, you did not tell me which composers or which pieces we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to sort of turn it over to you and you lead me through this. Where are we going first?
Yeah, I thought we'd start with my first guest that's featured on the podcast, and that is Sarah Kirkland Snyder. I have a deep connection to her music because it was her song cycle Penelope was the first time that I heard a piece of music and thought, I wish I had written that, which is like a really big thing, right? Because I loved it so much and it felt fresh and new and very also like me, I very much connected with it. And in talking with Sarah, we realized, oh, well, we had a lot of the same, musical interests, and like we're fans of the same artists. And so it totally makes sense that sound world that she inhabited is one that I felt very comfortable in.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, this song cycle Penelope, have you heard it before?
I have not.
Oh, it's amazing. It's an album. So I definitely, listen to it from the beginning to the end. And it features the incredible soprano / rock star Shara Nova, who is also a composer. She's also known as My Brightest Diamond, as a touring, rock musician, who I'd also, been a fan of for a while, and then heard her sing this art song cycle that, is inspired by like opera and regular art song, but then also, it's definitely pop sometimes too.
Huh.
And yeah, both Sarah and I started off as kind of singer-songwriters. We have that background. So that also really just makes sense. But yeah, I looked up to her in a huge way in my 20s and got a chance to meet her one time. She was in Minnesota, and just, immediately thought, oh, I just wish I knew you better. Like, I want to be your friend. And she is very sweet and kind and smart and yeah, writes gorgeous music. So yeah.
Are we listening to Penelope today, or what are we listening to?
I'd love to listen to one of the songs in the song cycle Penelope. My favorite movement or song is Calypso. And it's also the one that I featured in the podcast. But, it's my favorite. So I just want to listen to it again.
Yeah. What is it about Calypso that touches you so much?
I think it's one of the more pop influenced pieces, songs in the set. And it feels very much like an anthem. There's something, the melody just kills me at the chorus. It just, it's just a beautiful, beautiful melody that would always get stuck in my head.
That sounds very Jocelyn Hagen, like you're writing. Just you're saying that. I like had snippets of Belong and Hands. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I can hear that influence there.
Yeah, just kind of like this soaring, beautiful melody. Yeah, it's just awesome.
Okay. All right, so we are going to listen to Calypso. All right, where are we going next, Jocelyn?
Well, next I thought we would go to Chen Yi.
Chen
And
Yi.
Chen Yi, oh, she's a fabulous composer. She teaches at University of Missouri, Kansas City. And I really wanted to interview her because I almost went to UMKC for my master's
Okay.
and wanted to study with her because I had heard such amazing things about her teaching. And so there's always kind of this little like, I wonder what would have happened if you had gone to UMKC to study with Chen Yi. So I really wanted to get to know her. And just in the year or so before, I had the opportunity to sit on a virtual panel with her and kind of, get to say, "Hi, I almost came to study with you," and she was very kind about it. And I really loved our conversation that we had. She's a teacher to her toes and is so proud of all the different opportunities that they in that composition program give to their students. And that was really fun to dive into during her conversation.
What are we going to listen to today from Chen Yi?
We're going to listen to a piece called A Fisherman's Song, and this is for violin and piano. And I did not know when I picked this piece, because we also featured on the podcast, but it was one of her very first, I mean, not one of her first compositions, but it was like when she was still a student.
Uh-huh.
And so I think that there's something really beautiful in that. I feel like a lot of the music I wrote when I was younger has this kind of naivety to it that I don't really have access to in the same way anymore. And I think she felt the same way about that piece. She's like, "Oh, you picked such an old work of mine." But it's a beautiful recording of it. So I think you all will like it.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
we will listen to A Fisherman's Song from Chen Yi. All right, Jocelyn, what is our third piece or our third composer today?
Yes. Well, I talked a little bit about Rosephanie Powell a bit earlier, so I thought I would bring up one of her pieces to listen to today. And also because I'm so proud of this, we have one Rosephanie Powell piece on the Graphite Publishing site, which is
Awesome.
yay. And it was a piece that she wrote for Cantus, which is the group my husband used to sing in, and it's called When We Sing. And so, of course, we have this beautiful recording of Cantus performing it.
Awesome. What is When We Sing about?
It's a celebration of the power of song and I'm actually looking at the website now. It says to unify and build community, but it's really just an uplifting, fun piece that really does celebrate, why do we sing? We sing because it feels good, right? And it helps us feel like we're a part of something bigger. And I think this piece encapsulates that.
Okay.
Encapsulates.
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 It's a great word.
Yes, it is.
And it's called Why We Sing or When, sorry,
When We Sing.
When We Sing. Why We Sing, that's a different song.
Yeah.
So we will listen to When We Sing by Rosephanie Powell.
When we sing, when we sing, when we sing, we are one. Let's sing, come, let's sing. When we sing, let's sing. Oh yes, everybody, come, let's sing. Come, let's sing. Oh yes, come, let's sing. Come, let's sing. When we sing, let's sing. Oh yes, everybody, come, let's sing. When we sing, when we sing, when we sing, we're breathing together, living like we are. Every heartbeat pulsing together when we sing. Oh yes, when we sing, we're one minded body, joining heartbeats to our song. Every heartbeat is together, we are one. Through our songs we live, we love, we breathe as one community in harmony. In times of war, our songs bring peace. They ease our troubled minds. Inhaling, exhaling, we're breathing together. We're feeling, we're sharing, we're singing together. When we sing, when we sing, when we sing, we are one. Let's sing, come, let's sing. When we sing, let's sing. Oh yes, everybody, come, let's sing. When we sing, oh yes, when we sing, we're one minded body, joining heartbeats to our song. Every breath we take is together, we are one. We sing for joy, la 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 la, peace, la 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 la, la 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 la. That's why we sing for joy, la 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 la, peace, la 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 la, life, la 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 la. That's why we sing for joy, la 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 la, peace, la 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 la, life. That's why we sing for joy, we sing for peace, we sing for life. That's why we sing, oh yes, that's why we sing. So let us always sing our song. Let's sing our songs.
All right. And then, Jocelyn, I believe that you have one more song for us today. Who is this one by?
This is by Jocelyn Hagen.
Oh, I've heard of her.
Yeah. Well, it can be tough for me to put self-promotion can be really tricky and hard, especially for people who are introverted like me. But I'm always telling my mentees, if you could be writing the best music in the world, but if you don't tell people about it, you have to kind of be loud and get outside of your comfort zone. So I'm going to share one of my pieces here in that spirit. And also just because I have this brand new recording that came out this summer with the University of Michigan Chamber Choir under the direction of Eugene Rogers. He recorded a mass. So this is an oratorio that I wrote and premiered in 2011. And I thought I'd choose the Sanctus movement.
The Sanctus. What about the Sanctus that you like so much?
I like the energy behind it. It has this moment after the introduction where the word I actually use to describe the music is bubbling. So this like effervescent kind of, and it's sanctus, 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 sanctus. So it's more about the sound of the word than about, it's I just really am proud of this one. And I really love the ending as well. It has kind of this big Hosanna moment that is beautiful. And then kind of a surprising final chord.
Do you think a church choir would be able to do this mass, or is this more of a sort of concert choir sort of
Yeah.
piece?
I wrote this piece for the professional choir I was singing in
Okay.
at the time. And so I definitely pulled out all the stops. It's pretty hard. The Gloria movement is a double choir, SATB with even a little bit of Debussy. It's pretty massive. So it takes a large choir and also a really tight, the ensemble wise, it can be very tricky in terms of just adjustments in tempi and feel within even the different movements. So
Yeah.
it's a challenging one. But so I've only heard it 3 times live.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to listen to this brand new recording of Sanctus by Jocelyn Hagen.
Gloria
All right. Well, Jocelyn, where can my listeners learn more about this wonderful new podcast?
Yeah, well, basically anywhere you get your podcasts, you can search "Compose Like a Girl" and find it. And if you find that, oh, these conversations, I just want to hear the whole conversation and not the shortened, edited version. I do have a Patreon page where you can become a subscriber, and then you have access to the full interviews. So if you really want to dive in and be a fly on the wall for those long conversations, that's the best way to do that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And do you have a sort of dedicated website for this as well?
Yeah, just jocelynhagen.com/compose like a girl. I think
Okay.
that'll help you find it.
And I
Yeah.
assume you've got social media going for this as well, Facebook
Oh
and
yeah. Oh yeah. No TikTok yet,
no
but
TikTok.
no, but Instagram definitely, and Facebook, and LinkedIn a little bit too. But yeah, I hope you follow. I have we're doing all sorts of fun little animations and things with our pieces nowadays, which is
Oh,
really fun,
nice.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I do hope you and your listeners check it out, because it's been quite the endeavor, but a very meaningful one to me and to so many of the women that I talk to. And it's not just inspiration for women too; it's inspiration for everybody.
I have been inspired already, so I can attest to that.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you.
Well, hey, listeners out there, I'm also going to shamelessly plug my own music today. Visit sdcompose.com and you'll find links to a wide variety of choral and instrumental music. I have music for all levels of voices, from elementary school to professional choirs. I have choral, orchestral music, some purely instrumental, including my four-hand piano arrangement of Beethoven's Symphony No. 5. Any music I don't have directly on my site can be found through Two Bridges Music Press, the home for music from some of the brightest emerging composers from around the world. So visit sdcompose.com today and find a new favorite gem. Well, Jocelyn, I am so glad to have reconnected today. Thank you for joining me for Moveable Dough to talk about Compose Like a Girl.
Thank you so much for having me on, Steve.
My guest today was composer Jocelyn Hagen. If you have a recommendation for a future guest or an idea for the show, please email me at moveabledough@gmail.com. This is Steve Danielson. Keep the music moving.